Hi, and welcome to another one of my videos in a series of classic licks, showing you some of the classic licks from the greatest blues guitar players of the 50s, 60s. And I'm focusing on electric blues, and today we're going to take a look at playing a Buddy Guy. And I'm talking about early Buddy Guy, when he recorded for Chess Records and, in my opinion, recorded his best stuff. Now, he's still alive and well and doing stuff today, and I sure hope this doesn't infringe on any copyright stuff or anything. If it does, I'll get rid of it. But I'm going to show you some ideas that I picked up from Buddy Guy's playing. And in this lesson, I'm going to focus in the key of C, which is a key that he played in quite a bit. And I'm going to show you some licks and ideas from Buddy Guy's playing. I'm going to start out with my favorite, something which I use whenever I can. Octave licks. And in the key of C, I'm talking about something that sounds like this. And Buddy Guy, in a lot of his early songs, or in some of his early songs, you'll hear him playing that kind of lick, and he moves it around, and I'll show you some examples. Really cool, great sounding stuff, and very little distortion or effects. And this is Buddy Guy at his best. You can really tell what kind of guitar player he was. Fantastic stuff. So in the key of C, this is a first position major chord, C major chord. What I'm doing is I'm taking my ring finger, and it's on the 10th fret of the 4th string. And then I'm making a minor chord. It's really a minor type thing with my first finger barring the top 3 strings, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd string at the 8th fret. When I pick, I'm using my pick, which I've got in my thumb and forefinger, and I'm using my 2nd finger. So I'm pinching those strings, 1st and 4th strings. So the pick's getting the 4th string, and my fingernail finger is getting the 1st string. Now you could use a finger pick on that pick, but I just do it bare fingered. And I'm picking there, and then open between the 3rd and 1st strings. And then I'm putting my ring finger down on the 10th fret, going from the 8th to the 10th fret of the 3rd string, and then to the 11th fret. And the bass note, the 4th string at the 10th fret is my anchor. It's my starting place, my jumping off place. And also my end point. And you can listen to the way Buddy uses those. Now I've heard guys play that kind of lick up here too. And I've got my first ring finger on the 8th fret of the 1st string. I've got my 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, and then I'm hammering down my 2nd finger on the 7th fret to the 8th fret. But I think he's playing more that minor type sound with the 4 strings instead of just 2. And then, a lot of times he'll take that from the C position, the 1 chord, and move it down to the 4 chord. Back to the 1. And then he might do something like this. And what I'm doing there is on the G, I'm doing a gate mouth brown type thing. I've got my first finger on the 15th fret of the 2nd string, and my 2nd and 3rd fingers on the 16th and 17th frets of the 3rd string, and I'm bending and hitting both strings at the same time. But mostly it's the octave lick. And you can play that in a lot of different ways. Let's say you're playing a song in C, and you get to the 5, you can walk it down. or you could walk it from the 5 chord all the way up here. Something like that. Now, I think those sound best when you don't use them too much. You just play a little bit here and there in the middle of a solo to change the tone and atmosphere. You can do whatever you want with it. But that is what I call an octave lick, Buddy Guy type thing. A second lick that I hear in the playing of Buddy Guy that I really like, and you also hear this in B.B. King's playing, is when he goes from the second position, or from the 1 to the 4 in the song, and then he goes into this blues box type thing. And let me just play an example of what I'm talking about. So he's playing in the 1, so in C, and then he'll do something like this. And basically what he's doing is when the song goes to the 4, he's going to the 4 chord, which is an F. And then he's got this pattern. And you hear B.B. King use that quite a bit. You could also play it up here on the 1st and 2nd strings at the 8th to 10th fret, but he'll go up the neck a lot of times, all the way to the 2nd chord position, F. So he'll play something like this. Whoops. You get that really high sounds with the bends. And the bends that here he's doing mostly from the 13th to the 15th fret on the 1st and 2nd strings. And then he's anchoring himself on the 14th fret of the 3rd string. You can do all kinds of things out of that position. You go back up to the 1st position. Blues box. So whatever key you're playing in, you can do that. So if you're playing in A, you can go to the 4 chord, which is a D. And back to the 1. That's more of a B.B. King type thing. If you're playing in D, you go all the way to the G chord. And play up there. With the 1 chord being the D. So that's another Buddy Guy type idea, and you hear him go to that quite a bit. There's a song called "Stick Around," which is really cool, where he plays that, does that a lot in the introduction and then later in the solo. So that's another Buddy Guy type idea. Another one coming up is his use of double stop bends, and these are bends where you're bending 2 strings at once. And so if you're playing in the key of C, your typical blues bend is on your 3rd string, your G string. Something like that. Or Buddy Guy a lot of times would go to double stop bend. And I can think on some songs he's using the whammy bar with that. So if you want to, you can grab the whammy bar and make that really sound different. But on a lot of stuff, he's just bending the 2nd and 3rd strings at the 10th fret if I'm playing in C. So I've got my 1st finger anchored on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings at the 8th fret, and then I'm bending up with everything. So I've just got my 1st finger there to give me a little more push on the bends, and my ring finger is doing most of the work. You can kind of push it up, bring it down, like Buddy Guy does. But you'll hear that in a lot of his stuff, where he'll play the single strings single string runs with those double stop bends. Another double stop idea from Buddy Guy's playing is you'll hear something that sounds like this. And that is a cool lick. So if you're playing in the first position, bar chord, and C, so that's on the 8th fret where the bar is, I'm going to the 11th fret, that's my second position blues box, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then what I've done is got my first finger on the 11th fret, anchoring both the first and second strings, and then my ring finger is going to hammer down on the 13th fret of the second string and hit, you're picking both the first and second strings at the same time. You get this sound. And you can wrap it up, go into the 12th fret of the 3rd string. And go back up to the blues position, the first position blues box. Introduction. So you'll hear him use that in a solo. He also uses it on a couple songs as an introduction or beginning, but that's a Buddy Guy idea. Another way he can use that same lick is to play it up here in the first position bar chord area, 8th, this time with the 8th fret barred off and then hammering down on the 10th fret of the second string. And that sounds more like a soul, kind of a soul fill, Curtis Mayfield type thing. And he has a song called Stick Around, and he'll do something like this. And he'll use that mixed in with his single string run. So that's another idea that you can use. Albert Collins, you'll hear him use something like that as well. So those are some Buddy Guy type ideas. Now when he's playing his solos, typically he's playing in first position blues box. And just playing around the scale like in a pretty standard way. But it's those different licks, the octaves, and these other licks. If you mix those in with the single string runs, then you've really got the Buddy Guy type sound. Now you can take any of those individual licks and use it in your playing, or you can take all of them. You can do whatever you want with this stuff. And I'm just trying to show you some of the licks that I've picked up from the playing, from listening to the records of these guys and trying to figure stuff out. Once again, if you know anything I don't know, let me know. I want to learn stuff. That's why I like this music. It's like a big puzzle. It's not hard, but it's interesting to see the approach that each guitar player takes with their music and chords and scales and all that stuff. That's what makes their sound unique, is the way they do it. I'll be back again with another lesson, number 14. Next time we'll take a look at some of the licks from the great Freddie King.